about Benny and the Jets, but Oakland and the Jets. Add to fit that narrative.
The Raiders, I think their defense has struggled. Their defense has struggled a little bit over the last few weeks in terms of preventing fantasy points. While they've come up with some wins, they've allowed a lot of yards and kind of been more of a bend don't break type of defense, and have bent a lot. And so I think that the Jets could provide a little bit of a challenge in this one, simply because they're doing a little bit better the last couple weeks in terms of their offense. I think that Carr is still a solid streamable quarterback, should provide top 15 quarterback numbers. Jacobs may struggle a little bit in this one because the Jets defense has actually been pretty good against running backs overall this season. But they're going to give up a lot through the air. Tyrell Williams and Hunter Renfrow, I think, are going to be great options, especially in deeper leagues this week. As far as the Jets go, Darnold, I think, is a streamable option. Even with the amount of sacks that the Oakland Raiders have got this year, especially from their rookies, I still think that Darnold can put up some points against a Raiders secondary that's had a lot of injuries so far this year. Le'Veon Bell, I think, is still going to be just middle of the road. I don't expect a ton from him. But in terms of the wide receivers, I've been saying this all year. Jamison Crowder is my favorite fantasy option between him and Robbie Anderson. And, Ryan Griffin had a great week last week and really went off. And while it's a good matchup this week, I don't trust him to be able to string 2 weeks together in a row. And so if you're desperate, I would, Ryan Griffin, I think, is a good plug and play and hope that he can get a touchdown. But he's more of I think that he'll at least get you a couple catches for, say, 30 yards to keep you from getting a zero at your tight end spot. So I think that the Raiders still win this one. I'm going to go the Raiders. I'm going to say 21-14 Raiders over the Jets.
Yeah, I'm going to go Raiders 24-17. And the Raiders are playing, they're on a mission, their final year in Oakland, and I think they want to send their Oakland fans out on a high note, whether they get in the playoffs or not. Proud franchise, been on hard times lately, but they're playing hard. And with all the adversity that they had earlier in the year, the Antonio Brown fiasco, and a lot of other things, I think this team has played hard, and they've had a much better season than I even gave them credit for. A lot of that, to me, goes with Mike Mayock, and especially the coaching job John Gruden has done. 24-17 Oakland.
All righty.
And a game that you're all too familiar with the team you're all too familiar with, the Philadelphia Eagles, coming off of a tough loss to the Patriots, and they take on Seattle. What do you expect in this one?
I expect the Seattle Seahawks to win, but I expect them to win every week, no matter who they're playing against.
Right.
That's being a Homer fan. In terms of the fantasy implications for this one, the Eagles overall defensively have played pretty well. They've actually held over recent weeks, even though they've given up the fourth most amount of fantasy points to wide receivers, they've actually held wide receivers over the last 5 weeks to about 7 points under projection on average. However, with all of the options that Wilson now has, with Tyler Lockett, who should be healthy, you've got a big target in DK Metcalf, and then another big target in Josh Gordon, who's had an extra week with the bye to get involved in the offense. And then you have, Jacob Hollister, who has been, just a revelation in terms of tight end production over the last 4 weeks. And let's not forget Chris Carson is still the running back. Now, while the Eagles have been great against the running backs so far this year, Carson has still put up 100 yards against Tampa Bay, who was the number one rush defense at the time. He still catches the ball out of the backfield and can provide some production that way. So overall, Wilson, you're going to start. Carson, I think, is a solid running back too. Tyler Lockett is the best option for wide receiver out of there, and Hollister, I think, is a very streamable option. As far as the Eagles go, the Seahawks have had a little trouble against quarterbacks. However, they've been playing a lot better against running backs, and should be able to provide and should be able to stop up the running backs enough to allow their defense to take over against the wide receivers. And so they don't have the best wide receivers. With Alshon still out, you got Aguilar, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and Matt Collins. That is not a wide receiver court to be afraid of. Who could provide the most value, though, is going to be Ertz and Goddard. The Seahawks struggle against tight ends. So for this one, going with my gut, I still think the Seahawks win this one. So I'm going to say the Seahawks win this one 24-17.
Yeah, I'll go Seattle 27-16. All right, very interesting game. Dallas against the Patriots.
So in this game, I think that the Patriots are going to win just because the Patriots, it's in New England. There's going to be, as far as we know from the weather report, it's most likely going to be raining, and so that's going to cause some issues there. The Patriots defense has been absolutely phenomenal. They are the number one defense against quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. So this is really going to test Dak Prescott and whether he actually is an MVP candidate. The defensive backs are going to be very tough against Cooper and Gallup. So I think that it's going to be very tough to start or to trust a lot of production out of them. But again, Prescott's been a top 5 quarterback. You're going to start him. Cooper has been when he's played, has been a top 10 wide receiver. You're going to start him because he can still provide wide receiver 2 value for you. As far as the Patriots go, Brady, I don't think is a fantasy option for me. I think that it's still he is showing enough of his age, and the offense is not what it used to be. And the Cowboys have played very well against quarterbacks and wide receivers. They've struggled against running backs, which means Sonny Michel could be in for a decent game this week. And James White could provide some decent value catching the ball out of the backfield. And so Edelman, I think he's enough of a safety blanket for Brady that he still provides the fantasy value that you need. Overall, I think that this is a low-scoring game. And I'm going to go in this one with the Patriots winning over the Cowboys. Let's say I'm going to say that the Patriots win this one 17-9.
Really? Boy, that is a low-scoring game. I'm going to go 28-24 in favor of the Patriots.
And really, for me, the reason I have that as low scoring as I do is because of the weather.
Right.
It's not, from what I've seen of the weather reports, it's not supposed to be all that great in New England for this weekend. So.
Well, I hope I'm right, because I have a vested interest in Amari Cooper. So, nothing wrong with wishful thinking, especially when you're taking on your significant other this weekend. But then again, she has Dak Prescott, and the Patriots defense. If I stand a chance to get beaten in this weekend, it's because of this matchup. And the final game of the week is one we touched on a little bit earlier in the program, and we're going to touch on it with players anyhow. Baltimore against the Rams. You know, I have the Ravens defense as one of my choices, them or the 49ers. If you had the choice between the 49ers and the Ravens defense, what would you go with?
Right now, the Ravens defense against the Rams.
Yeah,
the Rams have not been able to have any type of consistency in their offense.
Yeah,
and so I think I think the Ravens are the better option to choose for this week.
Right.
If they're available, honestly, the Atlanta Falcons. I'm telling you, the Atlanta Falcons should be a solid start, at least a streamable start against the Tampa Bay offense. With Winston's propensity for throwing interceptions. So I think I'm actually starting the Atlanta Falcons defense in one of my leagues.
Yeah, they're not an option for me, but all right. So, all right, size up this contest.
Okay, so Deshaun Jackson Lamar Jackson is a top quarterback. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You are starting him, hands down, period, end of story. The Rams this year have actually been a little bit better against the run than they have in the past. They've been holding running backs to about 3 points under projection over the last 5 weeks. And really, the defense has been about the only thing that's really done much for the Rams over the last few weeks. So I think that Ingram is still a running back 2 option, again, because he can catch the ball out of the backfield. We saw that, in his career with the Saints. And so the wide receivers for the Ravens, I am laying off of a little bit. I don't necessarily trust Marquise Brown or Boykin or Snead or whoever else they have. They have so many wide receivers that they're just kind of back and forth on how much they're used and in what circumstances. Seth Roberts, I think, is another one of their wide receivers. So I don't necessarily trust any of the wide receivers. Mark Andrews, he is a top 10 tight end. You're going to start him if you've got him. And so really the safest bets, I think, in this game for the Ravens are going to be Jackson, Ingram, and Andrews. As far as the Rams go, I don't trust Jared Goff as a quarterback in fantasy. The Ravens have been one of the top 8 teams against quarterbacks. Have held quarterbacks to 6 points under projection the last 5 weeks. Gurley could be in for an okay game. The Ravens are middle of the road against running backs, so I think Gurley has a solid running back 2 floor, again, because of his ability to catch the ball in the backfield. If Cooks is playing, I think it provides some opportunity for Cooper Kupp. The Rams showed a little bit of vulnerability last week against the slot receiver. And for the Houston Texans, the slot receiver mainly has been DeAndre Hopkins over recent weeks. And so I think that helps Cooper Kupp this week, especially if brandin-cooks can get deep for a couple of passes and hopefully pull back the defensive backs a little bit. I don't trust Gerald Everett this week as an option at tight end. So really for me, the Rams, Gurley and Kupp are the best options in terms of fantasy. So overall, I think the Ravens win this one. I think that the Ravens offense has just been so explosive. They're going to be hard to stop. I'm going to say that this one ends the Ravens winning. I'm going to say 31-24.
Yeah, I actually like the Ravens in this one too. I'll say 33-20. That's where I again, obviously, it'll be interesting to see how the Ravens defense does, and for the Ravens to be able to accumulate points, they have to take Todd Gurley out of the question. So obviously we have the Sports Exchange coming up tomorrow. Want to give everybody a preview of what we're in for?
Yeah, as far as the Sports Exchange tomorrow, again, we're going to be talking more about sleepers and guys I think that could be in for bigger games that you wouldn't necessarily expect. I will have had a chance to dive a little bit more into the stats for guys that I think are really safe plays, guys that I think could be busts based off of matchups. So we'll go over a little bit of that, and then whatever injury news has come up before the Thursday night football game. Whatever injury news we have for the weekend, we will go over that as well.
All right, Ryan. Well, once again, appreciate your work tonight, and look forward to doing this bad boy again tomorrow. So this is Fantasy Football with Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Man-Mouth, and Ryan Skolrud, and here on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. We hope that everybody has an opportunity to go ahead and take our information and do well with it. So good evening, everybody, and we'll do it again next week on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network with Scott Morganroth and Ryan Skolrud. Good night, everybody.